How you doing today, brothers? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You doing good? You doing good? Doing good. So, today, long story short, I got a question for you. Have you read a book or read an article or read some sort of, watched a video, some sort of information input into your brain? And you've asked, like, someone's asked you about it. Because, for example, you read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? And then someone's gone, oh, well, what's that book about? And you try to remember it, and you remember certain paragraphs and points that like really hit you hard, but you can't remember anything else about the book. And you read the whole thing. Why is that? So the brain is actually a machine that is designed to forget, right? It is supposed to forget because we input so much information into our brain each day. Like that's the thing, is you don't realize how much information goes into your brain. Your brain is like, it's not a remembering machine because it just inputs everything. Think about, that's why children learn so quickly, is because they input everything into their brain. So our brains still do that, but we forget what isn't important, right? So for example, you might forget what you had for lunch like yesterday, but you definitely remember that time that you got robbed or punched, or like there's a certain incident in your life where you experienced violence for the first time, maybe. The reason you remember that because your brain goes, that's important. We don't want to die. Like that's why it remembers that stuff. If there's a tiger behind you, your brain ain't gonna forget it anytime soon. So your brain basically differentiates what's important and what's not important. But the point of this video is teaching you guys how to learn. So that is just so you have some prior information before we talk about this stuff. So number one is you guys need to create a perfect work environment. There's a book, it's called Deep Work by Cal Newport, I think, off the top of my head. And it's about this. So our dopamine receptors, I'm sure you guys have known, I'm sure you've seen the videos about it, is our dopamine receptors are fried, bro, from social media, from certain addictions that fuck us up, like porn and masturbation and drugs and shit like that, because we have so much access to all of these things these days that we just, of course, we're going to do them. They feel good, right? I think everyone will go through this point in their life unless they've grown up in this like environment where they're basically just dopamine detoxing their whole life to the point where they just don't know what a dopamine detox is. They will become like, they will get to a point where they'll be way overstimulated. Anyway, besides the point, deep work is, you can read, look, you can read the book, but it has a lot of information that is just kind of like building up to the subject. Long story short, you need to create an environment with no distractions. So no phones, no people talking to you. Turn off your notifications on your phone so you can get into a flow state. What a flow state does, I'm sure you've been in one before, when you just like pump out the work that you need to do, or just read all the whole book that you need to read, right? The reason flow states work is because you're focused on one thing at a time. Your brain works in a way that when you jump between tasks, it gets tired. It basically gets like residue, right, between what you're doing. It's impossible to multitask. You can't multitask. Your brain only focuses on one thing. When you're multitasking, you're just bouncing back and forth between two things. That's the only thing that you're doing, and that won't help you remember information. So sure, multitask when you're cooking food. If you want to listen to music and cook food, sure, do it. But you're not trying to retain information when you're cooking food. When you're studying, you're trying to retain information. So you need to create an environment with no social media or anything. Nothing, no dings, no people talking to you, not your brain thinking about someone texting you. Nothing. A complete work environment. So personally, what I do, instead of getting up early to go to the gym, I now get up early to study. The reason is because I know between the times of 4 and 5 a.m. no one is going to be up to text me to see what you're doing. So I'm not thinking about that, for one. And for two, when I have my phone on, so there's no distractions. Like I live in a house where there's other people in it, so no one else is up. I'm not hearing a bump and going, oh, what's that? You know what I mean? I'm specifically focused on my studies. So the reason I do this and is so I have no distractions, obviously, but I also have a timer on my phone, which is something that we'll be getting into shortly. But long story short, that can make a ding without having my notifications on, and I'll explain to you in a minute why I have that. So, deep work. Now we're going to explain what the Feynman technique is. So, basically, how your brain remembers stuff is, say you're doing a 2 hour learning period, right? It's going to remember stuff at the start and it's going to remember stuff at the end. But all the stuff in the middle, it does not remember, right? The reason I don't specifically can't tell you why this is, but all you need to know is that occurs. So if you have a 2 hour learning period, you're gonna forget the 1.5 hours that's in the middle. So how do we fix this problem? Long story short, we just make them shorter sessions. So what the Feynman technique is your 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And what this does is you can still have a 2 hour study session. So I just have 8 little sessions. So it remembers and it forgets just in smaller intervals. So you remember more over the time span. Does that make sense? So the Feynman technique is something you can type up, but all you need to know is this app that I'm going to give you. It's called the Focus Keeper. So basically, it's free. You just flick on this timer, and when your 25 is up, you'll hear a ding, right? So say you're in the middle of your first Feynman technique study session, you'll hear the 25-minute ding. So what do you do in that 5-minute time period? Well, what you can do is make yourself a tea or do the things that you need to do, because little side note here is that I think that you should make, especially studying, like I've never been good at studying, like I hated school and all this stuff, but I enjoy studying now because I've made it that way. School kind of ingrained into your brain that studying is supposed to be you staring at a book for 8 hours straight, not talking to anyone, secluded on this one desk. Studying can be fun. You've just been conditioned to think that it's not. That's the problem, right? So include some instant gratification activities into your studying. As in, for me personally, I like tea, I like music, I like food. So I cook a really nice little food that I can heat up just before early in the morning when I start, and then I make a tea, and then I listen to this like playlist that I love. Right? Don't listen to like doof music, because then you won't be able to concentrate on what you're studying, obviously. But right, back to the Feynman technique, yeah? So in this 5 minute period that you have, what you want to do is just do a quick little review over what you've learned, and we'll go into why this is the case in a second. But basically, just a little summary. So, for example, if I was studying copywriting, I'll just go, okay, I learned bullet points, I learned right? Just real quick little summary. Then you can get up and make it another tea, or you can get up and make more food, or you can just like do something. Personally, another thing that I include is like exercise into my study. So all of these reasons are coming up like very shortly. But so Feynman. So the Feynman technique is number one. Number two is what we call faster learning. So faster is an anagram, I think, whatever the word is. But faster learning. So F stands for forget. So before you get into a topic, forget everything that you know about it first. So for example, I've been looking at self-improvement videos for a very, very long time. So I'll see a video on like NoFap, for example, and I'll click on it and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, I know all about it. Don't do that. Forget everything you know about it before going to learn about it. It's difficult. Just do it. Just practice doing it and you'll get better at it, right? So F is for forget what you know. The A is for act, right? What you want to do is, like, again, we've been conditioned to look at a book for 8 hours straight, and that's what studying is, but that isn't studying, and it doesn't have to be studying. You want to make it an experience, right? So, for example, I will get up and I will make my tea, and I will get up and make more food, and I also get up and even exercise. Like if I'm feeling tired and like down, you know the exact feeling, your eyes are starting to get heavy. I get up and I do some shadow boxing, or I do some push-ups. The reason I do this is because I'm making learning an experience where I'm not looking at no one throughout history, maybe like a few people, yeah, can sit there and enjoy looking at words on a book, like they are truly passionate about it, but a lot of us aren't. So find activities that you can include, that you can do and act upon as well. Also, take these things, because I know many of you are going to watch this video and going to be like, oh yeah, interesting, and then put it down, right? What you want to do as another version of ACT is to incorporate that into your life straight away. So for example, if I'm studying copywriting, well, like I said before, I will straight away go, okay, how can I use this? I have 3 questions to ask. So the first one is, how must I use this? Second one is, where must I use this? And the third one is, why must I use this? And the reason I have these questions is so I can act upon them straight away. Right? A is for act. S is for state. So the reason we don't like doing hard things is because we've tried them before and we hated it. And our brain goes, don't do that again. It made you feel like shit. You want to learn to love hard things, and not love hard things specifically, but make them easier so you do love them. Does that make sense? So for example, with studying, the reason I'm starting to like studying is because studying just isn't studying. It's about getting up and making food. It's about having food and having tea and being able to do some shadow boxing and push-ups in between my studies, right? That's why I'm starting to enjoy studying. It's not about I enjoy sitting and reading a book. It's that my brain goes, oh, like we're gonna have instant gratification activities when we are doing studying. Also, you need to lower your dopamine like completely in order to want to enjoy your tea and enjoy food, because otherwise it's pointless. I have a video on dopamine detox and how to do it properly. There's a link in the description if you'd like to watch that. S is for state. So you want to be in a good mindset in order to enjoy it, right? So that the next time you do it, you will want to do it. Like, you don't want to not want to do it in the future. That means you won't do it. Your brain will eventually find excuses to not do it. So you want to make it an activity that you're happy about, and think about it. Think about the times in your life that you remember the certain scenarios and you remember certain information from school and whatever, maybe. Like, a lot of you will never remember the periodic table ever, because the main emotion you felt in school was boredom, versus feeling good. Like, when you feel good, your brain will remember it better, versus also when you're feeling heaps of pain. Like I was saying before, if there's a tiger behind you, your brain ain't going to forget it, because it knows it's going to go through some emotional trauma if it does. That's not saying sit in pain while you're studying. That means make a good environment so that you do remember these things. The most happy memories that your brain will remember are the best memories your brain will remember the most are the happy ones, because you were emotionally drawn into the scenario. S is for state. Create a state where you're emotionally happy. T is for teach. So teach, read and study like you're going to teach it to someone else, or better yet, teach someone else, teach people this stuff. So the reason that you want to learn like you're going to teach someone else is because, long story short, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that 10% of all information is absorbed just by reading, 20% if you write it down, but yada yada yada, all the way down the ladder. The highest retention of information is when you teach someone else, right? That is why you want to go into it thinking that you are going to be teaching someone else, is because your brain will automatically go, okay, I need to take some serious like notes down right now. So for example, if I'm studying how to learn, right, and I come across this technique, right, teaching someone else, I'm going to go, oh, like, I already know this stuff. Forgetting the F, which is forget. But then I'm going to go, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to teach it to someone else, so I should learn it anyway. Like, bang, bang. You're going to know more when you're thinking about teaching it to someone else. E is for enter. So if you physically enter this stuff into your calendar, like for example, 4 a.m. study, 5 a.m. study, 5 p.m. study on the 6th. Physically enter it into a calendar, then your brain is going to go, okay, time, place, do. Like it'll make it. When you put stuff into your calendar, your brain has like a 10x chance of actually doing it. It's the same with writing down goals, is because your brain has found a solution, found a problem, and it goes fix problem. Right, so put it into a calendar. Just write down 4 a.m. doing studies into your thing, right? Or whatever time you're doing it. R is for review. Now we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you don't do your reviews once. So in those little 5-minute periods in your little Feynman technique, do a quick review of what you were doing. But then, as you'll see on the timer app, after 4 25-minute periods in a row, you'll have a 25-minute rest as opposed to a 5-minute rest. Do a summary of everything in that 25 minutes as well. And then do a review of, so say you study on Wednesday and then you study on Thursday. Before Thursday's session, do a quick review of what you learned on Tuesday's session, right? The reason for this review thing is it will retain more information, and you do this over a consistent period. So the next day you'll review what you did the day prior, and that'll always be the case. And then maybe when you get to the end of the week, review what you did for the week. And then when you get to the end of the month, review what you did for the month. And this will, like, think about something like, when you say to someone, oh, you just unlocked a memory for me, that's not you unlocking your memory. That's your brain slowly forgetting it until the point where it's just about forgot it. And then it remembers it again, like, holy, that is a thing, right? Like, I remember that again. The reason it does that is because, again, it's pushing it out because it's not so much important anymore. But then it becomes important again, and it remembers it again for a significant period of time. That's how to learn better. Took me ages. I've never been good at learning all throughout school, so I thought I was dumb. Turns out that I can learn. Turns out that you can learn. Everyone can learn. We've just been conditioned that we can't, right? I believe in all of you and love you no matter what.